Hey guys, PIEGUYRULZ here, and no, I'm not jaundiced, I'm just talking about The Simpsons. So as you probably know, I spend a lot of my time talking about SpongeBob, the other yellow-charactered, long-running, jerk-having show. And although I am pretty down on SpongeBob at times for how long it's running and how repetitive it can be in its story and humor, even though SpongeBob's been on the air for over 15 years, they're still technically only just now starting their 10th season, with about 205 half hours of entertainment. The Simpsons, on the other hand, just passed 600 half-hour episodes. And that's not even counting the movie, the ride, the Tracy Ullman shorts, the theatrical short, and the tons of advertisements. I want to talk about how long The Simpsons have been running and how that affects the show, because it does affect it in a number of ways. Although technically The Simpsons is not the show with the absolute most episodes out there, it is one of few, if not the only, really long-running show that has not shifted the main characters or location or tone or pretty much anything other than making small changes throughout Springfield. There are soap operas that have gone on for decades, but those rotate through cast members and tone and all sorts of other different things, so that even though the show has the same title, it is virtually nothing like it was the decade or two beforehand. Same thing with Doctor Who. In fact, Doctor Who is a rather clever way to work around the fact that actors get older and don't want to work on the show anymore, in how it has new actors playing the Doctor, new companion characters, new locations, even changes in what kind of show it is. Heck, even something as stale and formulaic as Pokemon has made changes throughout the years. Sure, Ash might be a completely stagnant character, but at least he does get new companion characters, new Pokemon, new regions, etc, etc. But with The Simpsons, you're stuck with these 5 family members, one of which is a baby who can hardly talk. And of those 4 viable family members, each one of them only has so many character traits. And that's a big part of why the show is stale, because we're stuck with the same characters in the same location for 600 episodes. They're bound to repeat themselves. And while, of course, there is an infinite amount of ideas out there, the problem is that because these characters were never written to be super three-dimensional, you're going to end up telling the same types of stories again and again. Regardless of what the setting or the spin is, you're always going to have tons of episodes being about Homer being a bad father to Bart, or wanting to be a better father to Bart, or wanting to get a new job, or being dissatisfied with his life, or being dissatisfied with his wife, or Marge getting a job, Marge being dissatisfied with Homer, Marge worrying if she's become too much of a mom to be an independent person, Bart getting a girlfriend, Bart causing some sort of trouble that he can't get out of, Bart's friendship with Milhouse, disappointing his mother, or Lisa taking up some sort of cause, or being disappointed in how stupid everyone in the town is, or battling her parents on something, or trying to bond with Homer. Because the characters are who they are, the writers are naturally going to just keep hitting those same notes over and over again. And while sure, there must be some way to have the emotional conflict be something other than what we've seen dozens of times before, I really can't imagine how difficult it would be to pull that off. I mean, there's so many episodes of The Simpsons that if you were a writer and you wanted to just reference all the old ones just to make sure you weren't repeating an idea, how would you even easily do that? You can't just marathon the show unless you want to be out a week of your life. And even then, it's not like you could even remember everything. So you have to somehow look up every single episode that they've ever done, and then, from there, try to come up with an idea that hasn't been done before. And the next problem is that in the writers trying to come up with things that have never been done before, they often come up with some really exaggerated and really kinda stupid and gimmicky ideas. Like killing off beloved characters for seemingly no reason, or trying to spread publicity about how OMG Homer's really gonna leave Marge this time, for Lena Dunham of all people. It's hard to come up with a story that's never been told before in general. They're competing against their own show here, not even counting all of the other shows that The Simpsons has to compete with. I can't imagine how difficult that must be. And here's another problem with the show being so long running. At this point, if you were to watch all of The Simpsons episodes, or heck, even just half of them, you understand the language of The Simpsons. You understand the type of humor the show has, what they do with parodies and funny signs and characters tugging at their collar and going, ooh. Because there is so much Simpsons out there, as an audience member, it is very, very easy for you to just become acclimated to the way the show speaks, and therefore the show stops becoming surprising in any way. And that's a problem that really has no solution other than end the show. Please, please, please end the show. Because the only other thing you can do is to rapidly change up how the show tells its stories and the kind of humor on the show. Which, although you can certainly shift around a little bit, if you were to change it too much, then it would stop being The Simpsons in the first place. And here's another problem too. Back when the show first started, parodying things as extensively as The Simpsons do was a relatively fresh concept. Of course, parody has existed before then, but The Simpsons was a key player in making parody be a common thing. Now they have a lot of competition. They have Family Guy, South Park, BoJack Horseman, Archer. They have a lot of competitors that took influence from The Simpsons and are now doing things better than they did. Which makes sense if you think about The Simpsons as a show from the 90s, but it's kind of weird to think about that The Simpsons is now competing with a ton of shows that it inspired. And a big part of what made The Simpsons great in the first place was that it did what no other show did, by extensively parodying movies and pop culture in general. But now it has competition with all those other shows and the internet. It is no longer a novel or new concept, so you have to do it a lot better than you did it back then. And unfortunately, the parodies on The Simpsons have only gotten worse. And sometimes it feels like the parodying is just kind of blatant stealing. And it's because of all of these things that make me have the personal experience that I do when watching the new Simpsons episodes. Basically, I'll start watching, wanting to give it a chance, and then quit the episode halfway through because I don't care. I care enough about the characters to want to see what's going to happen, but then when I get into the episode, it's just something I feel like I've already seen before, or something that I know exactly how it's going to end. From watching 600 other episodes, you can start to learn how they write the episodes and how the flow of things are going to go. Can The Simpsons still be funny these days? Oh, certainly. And it can also come up with some interesting stories as well. But the vast majority of episodes have some relatively lackluster comedy and stories that feel just hollow because you know what's going to happen, and because it's impossible for the same kind of stories to have anywhere near the same amount of emotional impact. Watching Homer and Marge try to rekindle their relationship and find a way to keep going after all these years was great the first few times I saw it, but now that they've done that kind of story again and again and again, I find it impossible to even care. And when they try to make me care, it just feels hollow and forced. Like, does this one episode really matter? We know the character's not gonna really change, but I mean, that's a problem in general. When there's just so many episodes, you get the feeling like, does any individual episode even really matter at all? It doesn't even feel like these are characters anymore. It just feels like they're husks that are replaying moments that have already been done on the show, except without the emotion behind it. And I don't think there's a solution. I really don't. No amount of shifting of writers or crazy gimmicky idea or whatever is going to fix this problem. The only thing that can fix it is the show ending. But the sad part is that it's probably not gonna end for a long time. The thing is, people will keep coming back because they care about the characters. Because the new Simpsons is associated with something that they once loved. And because to people who have never seen the older Simpsons, these stories are fresh and new and interesting, and will seem a lot better to newer viewers than people who have seen all of the other episodes. So yeah, I don't really have any solutions. I'm just kind of venting because it's frustrating. Fox knows that they're gonna keep making money from this, and there's really nothing that anyone can do. I'll admit it, I was suckered in, I was curious about some of the newer episodes and concepts, and pretty much every time I tried to watch them, my response was, eh. And that's the truth. It's not even like the episodes are just like awful for the most part. It's more just that they're just so hollow. And I think that's why SpongeBob actually has a better chance of beating the seasonal rot and coming back and being a better show than The Simpsons, because at least SpongeBob is more about the comedy and being silly and weird and very rarely tries to actually be emotional. Whereas The Simpsons has done that and succeeded in the past and is still trying to do that today, but in my opinion, to very poor effect because I know how these stories are going to turn out. It's just frustrating. But hey, no matter how much The Simpsons sinks into mediocrity, there is definitely one thing the show does really well, in fact, better today than they ever have. The couch gags have been brilliant for the past few seasons. Here's some links to some really good ones they've done. It's almost like the people behind the show know that there's no way they can make consistently good episodes and instead focus all of their time and energy on providing these really entertaining couch gags. And there you go, that's my spiel on current Simpsons. I'm excited to hear what you guys have to say. With that, Pie Guy rules